Career misalignment can be extremely frustrating and a great source of job dissatisfaction. Many miners unfortunately face feeling unhappy and unfulfilled in their current roles. Today's guest is here to give us some more insight on how she made some boss moves to find her right role fit.
Nsuku Chanakira is a principal hydrologist at a leading mining company. She holds a BSc in Environmental and Engineering Geology, a BSc Honours in Hydrogeology, and a master's degree in water science from Oxford University. Her academic and career achievements led her to be named the National Vice Lead for Young Water Professionals South Africa, a member of the Young Scientific Program Committee for World Water Week in Sweden, and the 2023 Mail and Guardian 200 Young South Africans. Today, we discuss the topic career misalignment, a subject encountered by many professionals. We'll explore her experiences navigating this challenge and the steps she took to realign her career aspirations with her passions.
Nsuku, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having this conversation and sharing a bit about my journey.
I must say, friend, I am so proud of you. And I think I've told you this before. I'm so proud of you for just always being so bold. When it comes to your dreams, it is boldness, boldness, boldness. And that is so inspiring. I tell you all the time.
No, I appreciate that. But it's funny that you would actually describe it as bold because I think it's more doing it scared. Sometimes you take steps, you're scared, but you do it anyway. I guess that's the whole definition of courage.
So you had a good job, right? Well, straight after varsity. It was a good company, well reputable as well. You're getting paid. You could afford a good lifestyle. But something about that setup did not cut it for you.
Yeah. I guess my background was largely in a niche space, which was hydrogeology, so water, basically water management. And I got a really good job managing largely, or rather a bigger scope, more on the environmental side. So it was a very interesting role. I mean, I've always loved the environment, but I think it's more, I knew exactly what I wanted to specialize in that space. And I was increasingly feeling a bit of a misalignment, I guess, as you used earlier, or a frustration around, I'm not as interested in these other areas, but I really want to go, or rather grow in this specific area, not just in my job experience, but even in my education. So I think that was that feeling of discomfort that I felt. Just, I wasn't completely in the wrong place, but I just knew in that moment where I would have preferred to focus on.
Just maybe make it clear for us. What were you doing and what did you want to do? And I know it was in the mining space. So the direct contrast between the two.
Sure. So, I got a great job as an environmental trainee, PIT, they call it professional in training, which basically meant that I managed the whole, well, not managed, but I was being trained in the whole scope of environmental management at a mine. So that was water management, which was my first love. There was waste management, there was air quality, the legals, standards and all of that as far as compliance to environmental management was concerned. But I think as time was going, I completed my training program, got the exposure I needed. And when I moved into the role of being an environmental officer, just slightly more responsibility within the same scope. And I think my interest was constantly being drawn towards mine water management or any form of water management. And coupled with that, I wanted to pursue my master's. I had ended at honors level at the time, and I wanted to do my master's in something water related. So I think it was really that where I felt, I really want to just focus a bit more on water, but there wasn't a clear next step within the company's hierarchy for specialization at the time.
So what signs did you have or behaviors that started creeping in your daily work life that made you feel like you've got to make some moves?
I like to call it an itch. I had the itch to study, so that was the one thing. So every time I saw somebody, graduating, I was just like, man, this is really what I want. But at the time, I also wanted to figure out what could I do with where I was. And I think it was mainly just discomfort, because if you at least know there's an exit route, you're not as uncomfortable because you're moving towards it. But I think in that moment, I couldn't see like the next job opening within my company that was leading me closer to that. And I guess if you think of telltales, it's just the energy and the enthusiasm you have for assessing water balance, for example, versus calling the waste contractors to come fetch the waste. So it's something that as much as I'm, a firm supporter of recycling and all of that, I found a lot more enthusiasm and energy in a certain space. And I think normally you could sort of wait it out, but I think I was at a stage where I just couldn't anymore, and I really, really wanted to start taking steps towards that desire.
So let's talk about. I mean, sometimes we know what we want. We are clear about where we want to go, but starting those conversations is normally very hard. So just how did the conversations you had regarding how you felt about your job at that time, how did it look like? Because I can understand it's not an easy conversation to start, particularly with people who you report to and people you are constantly trying to make proud and please for, potentially future promotions.
Yeah. I guess my first inclination wasn't leave to go find another job. At least I wanted to see if there was an opportunity to find my way into that space within the company. And I think the first step I took was mentorship. So there were certain roles that were very interesting for me, but, definitely higher up, like people with 10 plus years of experience. I think I reached out to them for mentorship, just to let me know about their journeys, if there is a way for me to find my way to their roles. And I think one lady in particular, I had that conversation with her, and I mean, she was quite honest to say, well, there's no direct route. She encouraged me to just continue to set myself apart within that space that I was interested in. And she also encouraged me to study further if the opportunity did come. So I think just having those conversations from I want to grow, I want to learn, what can you teach me, or what opportunities exist, I think that helped. It was more a conversation of curiosity than a conversation of demand. I think maybe that's the difference, yeah.
But the moment you said, guys, I honestly, I want to leave. I see myself somewhere else, and this is not it. Where did that happen, and with who did it happen? But and in who, I mean, in terms of levels, and someone who could call the shots and say yes or no.
Yeah, so I think I didn't eventually say, okay, I'm leaving for the purposes of leaving. I was actively seeking out opportunities to study further. So, I mean, this was 3 years in the making. Straight out of honest, I applied to do my master's overseas. I got in, but I didn't get the funding, and then I got a job. So I was like, let's take the job. Then I went. That's how I found myself in this role that I was in. And so, second year again, 2018, I applied again because the itch was there. So I applied again. I then got in again, no funding. And I think that's the thing with studying overseas. Sometimes you get into the university and the funding doesn't align. I mean, that was quite disappointing because I was set. I'm like, this is the year.
So let me get it clear. When you applied initially,
yes,
right, to study overseas, you said you got a job. Was it within the same company in a senior role?
No, it was the same company that I'm talking about, the trainee role that I had gotten. Yes. So basically, I'm still in honors. I'm finishing my honors degree. I applied to do my master's overseas, and I get an opportunity to interview for a trainee role. So I still interview for the trainee role. I get into the university, but I don't have funding. So the advice from my parents was, how? With what money?
That'll always come up.
So I was like, let me go study further. I mean, I had done vacation work with the same company, so it wasn't in a foreign place necessarily, or something I wasn't familiar with. So I went for it. It was a great opportunity, great exposure. But the itch came back the following year. And so I applied again. I applied again, applied to a lot more universities, a lot more scholarships, no funding, but I still got into the university. And I think in that year, that was probably the toughest year because I thought, this is it, I'm moving out. But it was only in the third year now where, and I'm actually quite grateful for that journey because my interest in water had also refined over time, and I was no longer applying for the same degree. It was now something more strategic, more, integrated. And so that's when I applied to Oxford University, and I also got funding. So then my leaving, to answer the question you asked earlier, was now in the context of, I have this great opportunity and I think I need to take it. And so I spoke to my direct supervisor about that. And he obviously, understood that this was a great opportunity. And he knew before that I had expressed a desire to study overseas.
But what's interesting is that you've always known what you wanted to do, because even when you're still finishing your honors, you were just applying up, higher up.
Well, I like to call it feeling my way forward. And I was actually telling my husband about this, that I've always envied people that were like, I want to be an accountant, I want to go the CA stream, and I want to work in X, environment or company. For me, I had inklings, I had glimpses of truth. The truth was I loved water, but water's broad. You could go anywhere with it. I knew I was interested in mine water once I found myself in the mine water space. But what actually happened over those years when I was applying and then zero money and applying again was I was starting to get an interest in collaboration over water resources, which was something else. So I was basically feeling my way forward. I was growing in my interest and following that interest that I was now developing. And that's what led me to now this new degree that I actually just discovered. It wasn't new, but new to me, on water science policy and management. If I had gotten in 3 years ago, I would have studied something completely different, still water, but different. So I think it may seem like I knew what I was doing. Oxford wasn't even the dream at the time. I was applying to the University of Birmingham, also a really reputable university. But I think it's just, you follow the inklings, you follow the curiosity, you follow the opportunities as well. So that's really what happened. I think I was just like, there's a desire, let me go for it. And when the door opens, then you walk through.
Let's talk about the money. Let's talk about you going to study full-time and not getting a monthly salary like you would.
I guess it's a consideration. But I think it wasn't as difficult a choice, noting that I would be studying overseas with a scholarship that gave me, a stipend and was able to cover my accommodation, my tuition. So I think your needs as a student are obviously very different. I had to sell my car and just basically move out of where I was renting. But I think it really didn't feel like a tough choice at the time, because I was funded, and by God's grace I actually ended up with 2 scholarships. So then I had enough funding, and also there was basically a leadership program that I got access to. So I think it wasn't that tough a choice in that sense. I guess the risk was just believing that when I come back, my income can continue to grow.
All right, let's talk about your time in the UK. Look, sometimes you take one step, right? And then you've got a world of opportunities that are open to you, which you would have initially not planned for even. So let's talk about your time and the world that opened up to you when you were in the UK.
Sure. Wow. I guess I've already alluded to the first one, which happened just before I moved to the UK. I applied for the one scholarship, the Chevening scholarship. I got it. And then just leading up to going, I was called by another scholarship to say, hey, you were recommended for a scholarship here and come for an interview. I'm thinking, who are these guys? At the time, I didn't know about the Weidenfeld Hoffman Trust scholarship, which is an amazing scholarship. And I interviewed. And then I got both. It still covered, all my needs as per the initial one, but I think it was an opportunity to undergo a leadership development program, which was initially not available in the other scholarship. So I think that was the opportunity to meet other young people from across the world, incredible people that are just doing amazing things. And I think the opportunity to be in that space and be inspired by what they're doing, I think that was great. The things we learned in the leadership program was amazing. There was an entrepreneurship challenge that was infused into the program, which also, I think my mind at the time wasn't entrepreneurial. If anything, it was maybe dormant entrepreneurship. It really sparked my interest. And I was like, okay, I think there's a lot of things that one can do even when I come back home. There was a lot of opportunities to learn, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, the people that I engaged with, the libraries. Oh my goodness, the libraries.
I know you love
books. I love books. The opportunity to just be surrounded by books and all these amazing libraries, the travel opportunities. I think really it was the exposure. My aunt loves to say, you only grow to the level that you're exposed to.
Sure.
And I think for me, it was the exposure to the world, having met people from across the world, to my own field, which expanded my whole view of water altogether beyond just mine water management, to strategy, to policy, to the development space, which I also ended up working in when I came back home. So it's really exposure in a nutshell. Life in the UK was unique. It was fun. I think I really was transitioning on a number of fronts. So like you said, I was transitioning from work to being a student, transitioning from living in a whole different country, continent to another, different climate. It was colder, having to manage that. It wasn't as cold as I expected because there was a lot of news reports about it's going to be the coldest year yet or whatever. But I think we managed fine. I did not see snow, so that was actually very sad. I only saw snow when I went to visit the UK a bit
Afterwards,
later. Yeah, but I think it was so much fun. The experience of learning with people from different parts of the world. Because I thought that because I'm going to the UK, I'm just going to be surrounded by British people. And, okay, I didn't think I was going to come back with an accent, but I thought I would be surrounded by British people. No, Shep. It didn't work. But I think I had an even better experience in that I was surrounded by, British people, but also a lot of people from other parts of the world. Because that's the nature of the UK, but also very much the nature of Oxford. It really has a lot of people from other countries. So I think it was that multicultural experience that was unique. Learning about not just people's cultures and where they come from, but their perspectives on effecting change. I think that was really exciting. Like just sure, I think I came back with a lot of energy of people are doing things. Students are doing things, young people are doing things. And I think at some point, sometimes when you work, you can get a little apathetic or negative and just think you don't have the power to make a difference. So I think for me, that spark that I once had in varsity, that I can make a difference. I had a roommate who believed she could change the world in undergrad, and now I think that spark was revived. So I think that was really the selling point of being in the UK, or rather the special thing about it. It was fun. I was exposed to a lot. I didn't travel as much as I would have liked to. I did a bit, but not as much as I would love to. And I think the opportunity to go to Sudan for my master's research was also pretty special. So it was fun. I think that's in a nutshell. Very rich. Yes, I think that's the word. It was rich.
So while you were at it, did it feel like this is more like it?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, when you were in that space where you are traveling, because I know you went to Sweden to run some projects, you were part of some committee, water management leadership. So did you feel like this is the space I actually want? This speaks to what I've always wanted as a person?
Yes, in the sense that the experience in the UK opened the door for those opportunities. So Sweden came after when I came back home, and I applied to be part of the Young Scientific Program Committee for the World Water Week in Sweden, Stockholm. So I think I would not have even seen that as an opportunity if I had not gone to the UK and gotten exposure to know what CW is, or what World Water Week is. So I think, it just, a lot of things clicked in the sense of, sure, this is a world I did not know existed, not only in my field, but in general. I told my friend that I think the experience brought the world closer. Because sometimes you watch the news and they tell you, oh, this is happening, like Spain or somewhere, and you're just like, ooh, Spain, but it's right. But you don't have a connection, right? Suddenly, you know about a river in Spain because you studied there, or even better yet, if let's say it's India, you know somebody that you studied with who's there, and suddenly it just brings it closer, brings a lot of the experiences a bit closer, and you just connect a bit more and you want to know a bit more. So I think it's that curiosity rather that was stirred. So I think, it did feel like this is it, but not from I've arrived, but to a whole door just opened and I'm about to enter a whole new world. So I think it was mainly that.
So you've done that in the UK. You enjoyed yourself. You got your master's degree. Congratulations again. You're back in SA then. What happens next?
I go back to my former employer. Well, I wouldn't call them former, as the relationship stayed even when I was in the UK. So I returned as an environmental officer with the hopes to find my way into water again. But again, a lot of, you come back with energy when you've just studied. You're like, I'm going to change the world.
I'm here for the world.
Listen, the people that you meet are changing the world. So you're like, I'm going to do this. So I think there was a bit of now like energy that I felt like was not being applied to the things I wanted to apply to when I came back. in the former role that I was in. You know, the water stuff was still interesting, but all of a sudden, you know, it was just like, I really want to do a bit more. I mean, I think even just having gotten exposure to policy at the time, I was like, yo, maybe there's something. And I think maybe the journey to finding my way within the mining space on water was not moving fast enough. You know, sometimes you can be impatient as people. You're like, this is when it must happen. So I started looking for other roles in the water space. And I found this role that just made sense, you know, and obviously made sense also personally, because I came back, got married, and then, you know, I wanted also something closer to home. So yeah, that's when I got the role at the Danish Embassy as a strategic sector cooperation officer, but just a fancy word for a program officer for water management. Yeah, and that was also quite an adventure.
Which meant then you had to leave the company that really supported you into going to the UK, and they gave you that leave and an opportunity to come back to work afterwards. Did you not feel guilty?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that you know, people that have invested in you, people that believe in you, people that really wanted to see you grow in the companies, and you want to make them proud. I think it was mainly that guilt of, I know you really wanted to see this happen, and I'm sorry that it's not happening the way that you would have liked it to happen. No, in the sense that I believe in not burning bridges. So I didn't shut the door and say, I'm done with mining or I'm done with you guys. I maintained the relationships, and I also, you know, hoped to return to the mining space, hopefully in that role that was, you know, the lady that I spoke about, those kind of roles that were like, oh, okay, I can see myself leading in this space, but it was maybe something later in life. So I think there was that guilt, but I had mentors that helped me kind of think about what really was best for me at the time. And I'm glad I took the step. Yeah. Because it too was another adventure.
I can imagine. But so what opportunity risks then do you think companies face when they've got people in roles that they are not interested in, or their experience is not matching? What risks then do companies face? Because I think with a lot of people feeling the way they feel about their jobs, it's not the best for companies.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I'm a business advisor per se, but I think one of any company's greatest assets is its people, its skills, and how they deploy those skills for the benefit of meeting whatever company goals they have is critical. So in as far as the company can accommodate or rightly deploy skills, you know, encourage any growth that's there, you know, courses and all of that, exposure on the job training, that's key. But again, a company is a big animal at times, or at least I'm speaking of the company I was in at the time. What you really need are systems that allow for a bit more flexibility in that front, and it may not always be possible, but also leaders that are passionate about developing people. It's not always that you find yourself in a certain role and you say, actually, you know, I want to be in that department, that you can easily move. But I think there have been, and I've seen it in this company and other companies, where leaders have actually, you know, gone ahead to make room for that interest that's growing and deploying it in a different department and watching somebody shine. So I think that's to the benefit of of the company as a whole. If people have skills that are better matched in a specific role and are deployed there. Obviously, your career is your baby, so you also need to be on the lookout for where you would be better placed. But some of these things you only discover once you're in the role and you realize, no, actually, I want something else. So yeah, it's a dance between you, your company, your management, and hopefully that relationship meets both parties' interests.
So how do you know it's time to transition or rather pivot? And I'm very careful with asking this question because it's never going to be the same with everyone. But I'm trying to caution against leaving prematurely and abandoning the growth process, particularly because of a feeling of frustration or feeling misfit of some sort. So how do you know you need to respond to that feeling?
Yeah. Sure. It's a loaded question because on the one hand, a transition and a pivot can be very different.
Sure.
Pivot means I was going this way. Now I'm like, Jack, I'm going that way. Transition could be I'm applying for another job in the same company. I'm applying for another job in another company. So I think it's a bit different in that case. But normally, why do we do that? We normally do that because we want to grow. Okay? So you want to, you feel like you can now take on more responsibility. You've been in this role for X amount of months or years, and now it's time to grow. Normally, that's like a natural process. And I don't think that should be frowned upon. You want to develop yourself, earn more money and extra. So I think there's that. But also there's a narrative, or rather there's connotations to leaving in less than a year or less than 2 years. So I also was of the same school of thought. I was like, okay, my rule of thumb is at least let me finish 2 years and then let me decide if it's time to go. So that was a rule of thumb. But generally, I wanted to stay for a bit longer. I mean, in my first job, I was in that role for about 4 years. So but I guess rules of thumb are rules of thumb. There are exceptions to rules. So I think in my case, the first transition, which at the time I thought was premature, was 11 months into the job. I'm thinking, hey, there's another, recruiter was coming through with a role. And initially I said, no, I think it's not time. And they came back again. And, by the time they came back, my position had changed. Not that I wanted to leave. I actually was ready to stay where I was at, but I now wanted to get my hands in a bit more on the consulting side. So there was some interest, but even then I was just like, no, this is not me. I want to stay a bit longer. I built relationships. I loved my team. Like, honestly, I was happy. So there, it wasn't a matter of frustration. It was a matter of an opportunity has come, and do I want to stay where I'm at and see this out, or do I then go into this role? And one of the people that helped me with that decision was my mentor, who basically just helped me. He didn't tell me go or don't go, but he kind of helped me weigh the options. What am I learning here? What's the prospects of things I can see myself continuing to learn if I stay versus things that I will learn when I move over? And I mean, I think at the time, I could see myself learning more. It's not like you're like, I'm done. I'm not learning anymore. It was not the case. But when I saw the things I could learn in this other role, the experience of, consulting and the like, for me, then I thought, I think it's time. And it wasn't even so much it's time. I think it's the right move. Because sometimes we think when you move, you have to move from a bad position to a good position. It could be between two good things. And that's where wisdom applies, to say, okay, I'm just weighing my options. I could stay and be happy. I could go and be happy. It's really, because and those are the real tough ones. It's very easy if I'm in a position where I feel like it's a really tough work environment, I'm being mistreated. It's easy for me to say I'm leaving. But if you're saying I'm growing, I'm good, and an opportunity comes, then the question is it wise to move? And I don't think it's always wise to move. You don't have to respond with take me to every recruiter that slides into your DMs on LinkedIn. You have to decide, is this really in line with my career growth? And I think for me at the time, it made sense. It made sense because I just dipped my fingers into the development space. Now I was getting an opportunity to be in a consulting role to help with strategies and policy writing in the same space. So it was not a pivot per se, but it was continuing with it in a different light. Similarly, now when I came back to mining, now that's a pivot in a way, because that again was an opportunity that I think was an opportunity of a lifetime that came years earlier than I thought it would come. And I thought to myself, what would I regret more? Staying or taking the opportunity? And I felt that I don't think I would be able to shake off the regret of not taking that role. As overwhelming as it felt, like, Vela, this is coming now to me. But I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather go there, fall, fail, learn, grow, than stay here, which was also tough, as in it was a steep learning curve where I was. Again, it was also between stick it out here and tough it out, or stick it out there and tough it out. So again, so I think you need to weigh your options, pros and cons, what's good for your career, what's good for what you want to learn at the time. And there's times where you can feel that I think I've learned as much as I can. And if I stay, I'll keep learning, but my rate of learning might not be as. So you do have to apply yourself, unfortunately. It's not, I feel, exactly. In fact, one of my mentors once told me, you shouldn't wait for frustration to move. He actually said, anticipate the frustration and move before, because then when you move, you're clear-headed. You're not moving because I'm desperate. I want to leave. I want to just take anything.
Go wrong, hey?
Yeah, and then you're just going to take anything that comes. And I know that it's not always the case. Not everybody has that luxury. Some people step in and it's frustration from day one. But that's one thing he told me, and I kept it. But I think that's I don't know if it's a clear answer.
No, it is.
But do what works for you and seek advice if you're unsure. Yeah.
What do you think would have happened to you had you decided to stay and not make the moves that you did, feeling the way you felt? Where do you think you would be now?
I'd like to think I'd still be happy.
Okay.
I don't know. But I think I would have a lot of what ifs.
Yes.
That is probably what I would. So I would have stayed. I probably would have grown. I would have been a good environmental officer. I would think, maybe God became a manager, but because of the itch of the masters, I definitely would have done my masters, even if it was locally. In fact, I actually had started working on a proposal to do my masters in South Africa at the time.
So it was going to happen.
So it was going to happen anyway. That masters was going to happen. It was just a question of where. In terms of the career, if I stayed in the environmental space, I probably would have grown. But I think, knowing myself, I probably would have pushed anyway to go do something
so else. It's going to happen.
It might not have happened the way it happened now if I had waited a bit longer. But I think I would have still found myself in the water space at least. So again, it's not a thing of my life would have been horrible. No, I think it would have been a different life.
But with a lot of what ifs.
Probably a lot of what ifs. But I also would not know some of the things that I know now I would have missed out on. Do you get what I mean? So ignorance is bliss at the time. I might not have actually thought, maybe I would not have gone to Sweden. I would not have known that the opportunity exists. Do you get what I mean? So I think it would have been a different life. But I am grateful for how things turned out. I think I took the scenic route. It was not a direct route. I continue to take the scenic route. I'm still young. There's still lots of things up my sleeve. But either way, I think God would have still guided me regardless.
And then what advice would you give to students or people who are seeking careers in the mining space just to increase their chances of finding the right role fit? And perhaps people who are currently feeling stuck and frustrated in their roles? What would your advice be to the people?
To students, my advice is research and ask questions. There's a job description that's written, and there's a job description that is experienced.
My point exactly.
So sometimes you read a job description like, this sounds, but maybe when you actually talk to people in those spaces. So I'm very happy when people reach out to me and say, how was your experience in this job, or, I've got questions about this. That's also a form of mentorship. I think sometimes we think what a mentor must be, I am your mentor, and then I will guide you in everything in your life. But I think there's just questions. You see somebody, you think they know something you want to know a bit more about. Hey,
you don't need a deep relationship.
It doesn't have to be a contract for the next 6 months. It could literally just be a conversation. And that's some of the people that I call mentors. They don't know they are my mentors. But I'm learning from them. I'm intentional about reaching out to them. So I think that's probably the advice I'd give to students, to say, reach out to people in the mining space, help them understand, or rather let them help you understand what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. What are the good things about the job? What are the tough things about the job? And also just have a willingness to learn. It's part of feeling your way forward. You might not know if it'll be an exact fit, and you might be pleasantly surprised. You might actually enjoy it. And I'm enjoying mining now. So I think it's just, be open to that and ask questions.
But I like that, because it's almost like you don't have to step into the unknown. You don't have to figure it out when you get there. You can sort of proactively seek ways to know whether or not this is for you.
Yeah, ask questions, connect to people. If there's work opportunities, apply. If there's an internship, apply, because that little exposure can be worth a lot. Exactly. So I think that's probably my advice. For those who are frustrated
and stuck,
Look, I think there's a lot of potential causes of it. I'm not gonna say, apply grit and stay there even when it's tough and it's affecting your mental health, blah blah blah. But I'm also not gonna say leave, because there is a benefit to staying. Like, I remember I applied for this overseas opportunity before I even started, but I still stayed in that role for about 3 to 4 years. So I waited it out, and there was a
Stuck it
growth
out, yeah.
process that unfolded. So I think if you are frustrated, you need to basically examine the root cause. And if it's a root cause that you cannot reconcile or fix while you are there, then you need to, look at where else do you think you will be happy. But you must be honest with yourself in that root
that's
cause
true.
analysis, because it could be that maybe you're not in the right space, yes, or maybe you need to do some work. It's possible, right? Or maybe you just need like a side hustle. Like, it's
I
possible.
know,
Sometimes
yes,
we expect your job to be like
Everything.
everything. It's gonna
Yeah.
fulfill your every
Yeah.
but maybe you are actually good at it. It may not fill you as much, but maybe when I don't know if you do magwinya, it makes you happy on the side.
Do
But
it on
you're
the side,
do you
yeah.
get what I mean? There's no one size fits all. But I think the key thing is, don't just sit with the frustration.
Sure.
If it means you need to get therapy or whatever, do that. If that's the issue, if it's a internal HR issue, handle that. If it's apply for another job, apply for that. Because I also have
Don't do nothing.
just don't sit there and be frustrated, because what happens is it colors everything. You then are that person who, you're always complaining, and you suck the energy out of things. So I think there's that, or upskill yourself, learn something new. Do you get what I mean? So I think that's definitely key. And I had a pastor who liked to say, do something. I really, I love to
something,
say
yeah.
God sponsors action.
Sure, I
Take
love
action.
that. I think that is almost my mantra now.
It's
Like, you cannot not do anything, Shloku. Just start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's key. And I'm not saying that you're gonna take action now and change will happen now, but I think stick it out.
Yeah.
And where you see whether there's a future here, I just need to, go through this tough season in terms of maybe workload or learning, because it's very uncomfortable to learn. And I'm going through that. Then stick it out, be tougher. It's tough, but be tougher.
Two big things actually that I think are very inspiring, Nsuku. It's getting a master's in Oxford, girl. This is not a child's play. This is a big achievement. And two, I think you were also recognized as one of the top, young performers in the mining industry. Can you talk to us about it, and how much work you put in it and what it means to you?
Oh wow. So I think it was, it's humbling, and my mentor's going to ask me what you mean by humbling. I think it's something that I'm grateful for, because like I said initially, the dream was to just make it to the UK, and then God just blew it up to be like, I'm gonna put you at Oxford with the scholarships and stuff. So I think it's just something I'm really grateful for. It means a lot. I don't take it lightly, but for me, it's also like, I don't want to be the only one. So I just want my story to be that it's possible. I'm a proof of concept. In fact, there are other proofs of concept that came before me. There are many others that came before me that have done it. But for those that, if I'm the first person that you learn about that has gone to Oxford University, and that is your desire, know that it's possible. Like, may I not be the last one, may I not be, just, oh, she did it and it's just put on a pedestal. No, I think it's that if you really want to go for your dream, and even if it's an evolving dream, move courageously in the direction of your dream.
You like that?
I love that statement.
I love it
because moving in the direction of your dreams requires courage, and that maybe you are scared,
There needs to be
maybe
some
you're,
boldness,
So I think there's the courage, but also that the direction is that sometimes it will meander. But as long as when you keep course correcting, moving in the direction. Yes, exactly. Somebody once said, I think be stubborn with your goals and flexible with your methods.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. So whatever your goal is, it might not be Oxford, it might not be traveling, it might be something else, but whatever it is, I think that's really the message, to say, peg it and move towards it. I think that's key. Wow, the Mail and Guardian top 200.
Top 200.
That was pretty cool. My company nominated me. I was really grateful. again, you get into this room and you introduce yourself to people and you're like, man, South Africans are doing things.
I know.
So I think it was really that. For me, it wasn't even like, oh, made it, it was actually almost like a commissioning. Like,
Yeah.
can you see
Yeah.
what others are doing?
Yeah.
Yes, it was a pat on the shoulder. Like, I'm really grateful for how far I've come, but also there is a lot of work to be done. So I think it was that, and I'm very grateful for it. And we keep going.
We keep going, girl.
Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, no, this is so inspiring, I must say, and I'm so grateful for sharing your unique perspective on finding a fit and how much things can happen from just making that one move. Thank you so much. It was invaluable insight.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciated it. And it was really special to reflect on the journey, and I hope it helps or encourages someone out there.
Your feeling of unsatisfaction in your current role does not have to be fatal. While you may decide to stay for growth, it's important to explore other options that will give you the right role fit, like she did. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and God bless.